As everyone knows, Chuck Hagel is the chairman of the Atlantic Council, one of our hosts today, and of course a former U.S. Senator, and Paul Bulcke, who is the CEO of Nestle. And Senator, what we thought we'd do is perhaps just have Paul bring us up to date on a few ideas of this conclusion, which is really the moving forward towards our time horizon of 2030, but just some of the key ideas that might have come out, some of the ideas that you would like to leave us with, Paul, after this intensive day.
Thank you, Maria. I think you all agree that this was quite an interesting, straightforward discussion we had today, and it's always hard to sum up after we touched quite a few points, but just a few key points. Actually, Fred Kemper started to talk about the fact that we're living in very interesting times of inflection points. Actually, he mentioned that we were living in times with inflection points as important as the Industrial Revolution, or at least inflection points that are the most important times after the World War II. And that these points create huge opportunities, where then the optimism comes in, opportunities to create value, and there we come with creating shared value, but create value for shareholders or to go about business opportunities, but also opportunities for society, opportunities for business to going about business, to mention what Michael Porter was saying. Also an opportunity for long-term, as Peter was saying, long-term sustainable, profitable growth. And I would say long-term sustainable, profitable, inclusive growth, which is then linked up with quite a lot of other discussions we had. Actually, it is a huge opportunity for the concept of creating shared value. And if you think about the concept, it is linked with the society working more closely together. A good way of defining creating shared value is the fact that it is intrinsically embedded in how we go about business. And it stands a little bit against sharing created value. Let me explain that. Creating shared value is intrinsically linked in what you do from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. And sometimes sharing created value may be a certain point in time just before Christmas. So that to a certain extent is quite a good, I would say, playing with the words a little bit. But what there is a convergence, I feel, convergence of interest in society that was not so felt as in the past. There is no conflict of interest with all partners and all stakeholders in society at large. And we spoke about the role of engagement of women too. Ruth was quite vocal on that, and that's very important too. And if you see in the developing world how women are actually the stabilizing factor in society, in families, and how they are also a very dynamic factor in farming, and farming linked with rural development, and rural development linked with basically the development in so many parts of the world. We spoke about nutrition too, and women again with nutrition, education. Women are very important to us for Nestle. The consumer base is quite female, but also we have a keen interest in employees and so on. We spoke about differences in culture and how actually value is created related to the different cultures in the world. And there is no one model, and we just heard it in the last panel again. It is not so that the Western model is the model going to be that we export and implement in every part of the world. There's going to be what we call sometimes reverse innovation, and we see that coming now with the developing world too, and how then again the creating shared value is meaningful when we as companies or business really drive the business in the environment and with the dynamics of every country. We spoke quite explicitly about that when we spoke about Africa. We spoke about the need to measure this creating shared value. And we spoke about the financial accounting, and then also that social, and how we have to link one with another. And to a certain extent we should do that, but you measure at the end, the best measurement is continuous success, business success over time. Exactly. Because that's the best reflection that something is going well. And then also you can then measure also how society is developing, and there's quite a lot of measurement there too. So, and how these two then converge. I would like now also, in conclusion here, remember, speaking about creating shared value, that we have the Nestlé Prize in Creating Shared Value for 2012. Which is, as you may know, it is open to individual, governmental and non-governmental organizations or academia, small enterprises, going very creatively about that concept, creating shared value, with very new ideas of how actually the entrepreneurship linked with society can be a developing factor in society at large. And we spoke about the example of last time, the last prize, which was in a project in Cambodia. The prize, the winning entry will benefit of an investment of up to 500,000 Swiss francs to further develop the concept and to make it work. The nominations are open till the end of June. I want to thank also from the part of Nestlé for our partners today, Chuck Hagel, Fred Kempe, and everyone at the Atlantic Council who have been providing us with such great support and also logistics.
We're going to have to make him work for his thanks now.
Yeah. But I want to thank you also, and dare I say, the unparalleled moderator, Maria Katawi, who is truly the best in the business. And Maria, may I give you, I hand you over a small token as an expression for our appreciation of how you led
This is the
discussions,
sharing created value part. Yes, this is the part that I like.
Sharing some creative value, yes.
I have to look at this. But I have to earn it first because I've got to, oh my goodness. Oh, that's absolutely magnificent. Look at this, will you? Will you look at this, Senator?
That is spectacular.
Isn't that absolutely spectacular? No, you're not going to see it. Here, it's kind of heavy. But it's absolutely magnificent. And now I'm going to try and earn this by talking with you for a few minutes.
You do not have disclosure rules.
No.
Let me take that for you.
Thank you very, very much. And look, one of the things that came out in our discussions today was the opportunities that arise for business in making serious profit while also addressing societal issues. And that the two, rather than being in conflict or rather than it being, let's say, a philanthropic effect, it is actually, as Paul has said, it is something that is embedded in the business plan, in the operations of business, in the profit making, if you wish, for both society and for the businesses. And we discussed at some length also extending this into companies around the world, stronger. It's the post, if you wish, CSR. It's the new approach that makes sense as we move towards a world with a lot more people and a lot less resources. I guess the question I would have is, why should it matter? Why should we be spending this amount of time and this amount of effort? Why should companies do it? Why should it matter? And particularly in the U.S., should this be something that makes a difference also in the United States?
Maria, thank you, and thank you for your service and especially keeping this group of ne'er-do-wells on track today.
Yes.
I know it's not easy. Paul, thank you. And on behalf, again, I know Fred expressed this morning, the Atlantic Council, we very much appreciate partnering with Nestlé on this event and others in our past associations. As to the question, Paul used some terminology that he referenced has been used in good measure throughout the day, and it's a reference to confluence. Your question is about the confluence of interests. When a confluence of common interests come together, then almost always there will be, at a minimum, some modicum of success that will be achieved. Profit, Paul talked about value added, stability, security, making a better world. Because throughout history, it is rather complete that it is the human condition that drives history. The Tunisian fruit vendor set himself on fire not because he was advocating a philosophical point of view or some kind of a governmental philosophy. He set himself on fire because he had been stripped of his dignity. He felt he had no hope, and he felt his country and his people and much of the region were now locked into a cycle of despair. So if a company is to do well and prosper and enhance society, not just their shareholders, because their shareholders are part of society, then that must include, yes, growth, yes, productivity, yes, that goes with prosperity, but also stability and security and hope. And the possibility my children will have opportunities to do better and make a better world. It all does come together. And I think you noted Fred's comment this morning that we are at one of those great historical confluences. We can not be wise enough to maximize these possibilities, but we are in the middle of all 7 billion global citizens of building a new world order. That's what's going on here. I was this morning at the Bretton Woods conference, and I opened the session with the president of the World Bank, Bob Zoellick, and we talked about some of these general themes. And we all understand, I think we're getting to the sophistication of this point, that without security, without stability, without hope, then the world is going to get pretty messy. Because the world that we live in is complicated. It's combustible, and it is completely integrated. And we need not go much beyond the global financial crisis of the last 3 years. There wasn't a country, a population, a people untouched by that. So yes, it's important that all these factors come into play, and that it is completely, totally, comprehensively in the interest of business to pay attention to all of these social elements, because only through a resolution of many of these challenges, especially now in the 21st century, and some success at moving them to higher planes of achieving objectives and making a better world for more people, for all of society. The hope of that possibility, it clearly is in the interest of business, and business can't succeed without it.
No, very clearly. We don't want to keep you long, but we have you here. So we do want to see with you some of your thoughts right at the end of our afternoon. You said we're a world moving towards 10 billion people very shortly, very, very shortly. And with the last years, the last decades has seen this incredible growth. And as we do that, we were just wondering your view. You talked just about a change in the way that the order or the governance will happen. Do you have any thoughts that you want to leave us with on that score?
Well, I wish I was wise enough to be able to contribute something to that question, but I would make this observation. I think we are, all of us in the world, and as you note, the demographers say it will be certainly 9 to 10 billion by 2050. Mm-hmm. We are, I think, working our way toward a more and more decentralized world, meaning that it will be the individual nations and people and communities that will take on more responsibility for their own actions versus, for example, the last 65 years when a few nations really made all the decisions for everybody. The United States of America was uncontested completely since I was born, and I was born at the front end of the baby boom generation. My father came back from World War II, married my mother 6 months later, and I was born 9 months later. I did check that. In my business, you don't leave anything to chance.
No,
birth certificates
check your birth certificate,
are,
exactly.
I'm not the smartest guy, but I did figure that out early. And So as you follow through where we are, where we've been, and where we may be going, taking nothing away from the fact that the integrated institutions, and I think alliances and institutions will play as big a role or maybe larger than they ever have. When we formed a new world order, we being the United States and our allies after World War II, we built coalitions of common interest. Coalitions of common interests. What does that mean? That means that we built the United Nations. Bretton Woods in 1944 prepared a monetary system for the world, the IMF, World Bank, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, now WTO, multilateral banks, institutions, development banks. All those played a huge role in the great progress we made. Now, the most troubled areas of the world, and if you really want to frame that up, look at it's the arc from North Africa all the way across the Middle East, Persian Gulf, down into Central South Asia. Those areas were left behind. They didn't benefit. And so the common interests of the organizations and institutions did tremendous things for mankind. Let's not forget there was no World War III, and every one of our great leaders after World War II went to their graves concerned about a World War III or a nuclear exchange. That's not happened. I think you could make a pretty strong case that in any endeavor, area of expertise, of focus for humanity, we've made unprecedented historic strides. Food production, science, health, technology. Now it's complicated because we have to manage all that. But nonetheless, that continues on a very important path, those institutions, those structures, those venues, those boundaries that give all of our nations and nation states and societies some boundaries to work within. However, it does not negate what I think the decentralization component is going to be more and more. And I'll give you one more example on this. What's going on in the Middle East today, North Africa? The United States of America has very limited influence on the outcome. Switzerland, Great Britain, NATO. I mean, NATO is, for example, divided on Libya. And so it will be up to the people of those areas. We can help influence, we can help shape, we can help what the President of the United States' speech was today. I mean, that was his message today. But we can't impose. That has been one of the great lessons of the last 65 years. A nation cannot impose from the outside or dictate. You will be a democracy, you'll be damn happy about it, and that's the way it'll be, and you'll all be little Americas. Well, it hasn't worked that way, and it won't work that way. And that's my point about decentralization. The people of Egypt, for example, are going to have more to do with the outcome of the Middle East than any one influence that I can think of. Now, I may well be totally wrong, been wrong many times before, but I kind of see it happening that way.
One last question. When you talk about it, I don't want to call it fragmentation, but this very localization of things. There are many people who also think that over time, as we move towards this highly urbanized world as well, that cities will become centers of gravity of governance. Just leave with you a final word on how you see the shape of our world as we will be governed over the next decades.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily equate where we are today with the Treaty of Westphalia, but I think there are some parallels. Now, I'm quickly out of my depth here. If we had Henry Kissinger sitting here, he could talk about it, but my expertise is limited. But I use the Treaty of Westphalia because, as we know, that really established the nation-state concept. And that was critically important to civilization and to boundaries and to unifying societies. And it wasn't that long ago, there were many of these present countries like Italy and Germany that were really not formed until the late 19th century. And so we're not that far away from, a few hundred years from the Treaty of Westphalia, but not that far away from the last part of the 19th century. So where I think this will tend to go, to your point about urbanization, that's probably right. that's for a lot of reasons. If for no other reason than what Paul was talking about when I walked in at the last panel and I heard the last part of the conversation, is food production and resources. Your point about putting 9 to 10 billion people on the face of the earth by 2050, that means an astounding demand on resources. And the human condition, as I said earlier, always drives everything. It drives policy. Then you add to that budget restraints. Now, we're right across the street there where I used to work, they're working their way through that as almost every government. But those are constraints that will have to be factored in, that will project on policy and direction of a company, of a culture, of a society, of a nation. I would end this way. I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. I see some tremendous historic opportunities. We could screw it up, and we might. But I tend not to believe that. If for no other reason, it's just better, easier to get up in the morning and feel hopeful than the world's coming down on top of it.
Well, in that case, you join the business community, which wouldn't exist if it weren't positive and hopeful. I would like, on behalf of all of the audience here and the people watching us on the webcast, to thank you, sir, to thank the Atlantic Council, Fred Kemp, and to thank Nestle, Paul, and Peter for having hosted this. And I hope you have enjoyed and learned as much as I have. Thank you all very much.